But I would, just Pete and Hinken were just fucking late as can be.
Yeah. All right, now hang on here. Where's my mic? All right. Here, I'm going to give this to you.
Right there. So these are all. This is your presentation. That's the safety presentation. That's Tim's presentation, and that one's mine. Okay. There's your microphone.
You think I need a microphone?
Yeah, because it's going to be transmitting into the computer, so the people that are online.
Okay. Well, I'm probably gonna just do an overview. Hank can do the next one because it actually relates to some stuff that he wrote in the Pelican, and then Pete can do the next one. And I'm trying to do it so that I get more people talking rather than just.
So just give them the microphone, and then we hand it off to the people as well.
So you can just hit the. Are you going to stay up here?
No, well, I don't need to. If you, I'm good to go back. So, so you're ready and you're.
No. Out of curiosity, did the
There's no videos attached to that. The safety one?
Yeah.
There's no videos to it. Oh. The only videos are in the safety overview.
If I give you can you load it onto it? Do you know? Not at this point. And can you hit USA Rugby and can we go into there?
Oh yeah, you can hit all of these. You'll be able
No. But USA Rugby. Is this? Would we have wireless? Can I go onto? So I can go onto USA Rugby and pull that up?
Yeah.
Because I would. This is all verbiage.
No, I know.
And I'd much rather go through the.
That's fine.
I don't even know if I want.
I'll do it when we get ready.
Okay.
Here, let me get it to the point where you want it.
Do I turn this on?
It's already on.
Okay.
You want to end presentation?
Yeah, might as well. And then I just, with mine, I just touch the down button to move on.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started.
So how are you guys doing today? I'm doing chipper as can be. So I started off this season. We're going to go over some safety protocols, a little bit of first aid management, some concussion management review, a few referee safety flashpoints and game tension. Just do a little bit of an overview of some stuff. I actually have talked with a number of people in the room that are going to actually talk a little bit about some of the slides. So I'll pass that information on to them. And with that, without any further ado, James. James had written up in the Hail Pelicans this last week a discussion about actually have the technical zone set up. And I do think that safety actually starts off the game early, being proactive, and if there's manhole covers or there's problems with the field, it gives you an opportunity to really engage the coaches and the captains and make sure that because they played on these fields for a long time, so they have things that they do, and they'll, if a referee lets them get away with it, they won't bat over the thing, or they won't put a pad over a specific spot. But here, James, why don't you go ahead and take over? Did you?
All right, it's really simple. We have the new USA Rugby guidelines that we are that we need to enforce. And the link is in the help Helcus, or we can get that online for you. But it's when you show up to a match, the first thing you really should probably be doing, you kind of introduce yourself, and you walk around the field, make sure that they're getting things set up. Not everyone will have everything set up then, but you look for the dangers. Talk to them. Let's make sure that we have our technical zone set up and they're on the correct side of the field. We were all asked to look at these things at the beginning of at our AGM and throughout the fall. And I'm sure not every field was compliant. Some were, some weren't. The time to work with clubs at the start of the game. That includes also issues like goalposts, the pads or the goalposts in the back of the try line. These kind of things that you can work on, and it gets you a chance to talk with the club, the captain, coach, or whoever, and it sets a rapport, and it allows you to really put yourself out there as someone who's looking out for the safety of the players. And that is one of our primary jobs. We're going to make sure that's covered here because I think it's going to be dangerous. We're going to have our technical zone set up. We're going to have, make sure that our coaches stay in the technical zones. And because these are now, mandated by USA Rugby. This is your time to talk to people because you don't necessarily want to be doing this 3 minutes before the game starts. Because this time, everyone's getting psyched up. Everyone's getting amped up. You're getting worked up. And everyone's concentrating on the game. So getting there early, walking the fields, and getting your face, your voice, your image out in front of the players and the coaches so they know who you are. And along with that, it's probably not going to be an issue in the wintertime, but more in the summertime. If you're, in a ripped shirt and flip-flops, probably not the right image. Try to have a more professional bearing as you go there because they will see that and they'll react to it. Do you have another slide?
Yeah, no, that's it.
And that's all I got. So, thank you.
Talk about setting an early standard, and I think setting an early standard is how you handle yourself before the game. And it's going to make it so, like, if you're not going to allow people with tights to play, if you're not going to start the game without pads on the goal post, they're going to know you're going to be in control, and they're going to feel much more comfortable with you. And it's just going to hopefully, diffuse some of the bitterness that people have against referees at times. So the next discussion I wanted to just touch base on was we always get flashpoints in games, and especially when you've got a really good game and it comes towards the very end of the game and it's very close, you're managing testosterone and adrenaline, and these players, gauging that and keeping your standards the exact same and making sure that, the last 10 minutes of the game, if it's a really close game, it's going to be tight and everybody's going to be really excited and they're going to be playing, possibly doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. You still have to keep the same standards and you still have to give give cards if you need to. But Pete's my authority on this.
I need a mic, but I'll be all right.
Well, no, this is not. It's
sorry.
Live. So
all right. So, when he's talking about the flashpoints, I'd like to think a little broader, more temperature of the game sort of approach. You can usually tell if a game's starting to get testy and things are starting to flare. Guys are kind of pushing and shoving. There's a little more back chat, stuff like that. You'll see more things happen. Conscious of the temperature of the game, and it happens in rugby. It happens in soccer and basketball and football and everything else. You can typically see that temperature is rising. A good referee will allow the game to go. I like to think of it as here's your boiling point. You want the game just underneath that boiling point. You want it as close to it as you can get without going over, because if it goes over, you got problems. And if it's too far under, it's tepid, it's boring, it's not fun to watch. So you want to get a game where you kind of just let the dogs out for the rest of your ability, let things go, play long advantages, let players get involved in the game, let them going. And then as you see it, the temperature starting to rise, you have to be conscious of that. And some of the things he's put up here, slow the game down, whistle on fractions. A lot of it's just, play shorter advantages. I mean, if you've got a game where you think this thing could go off like a powder keg, the last thing you want to do is play advantage on a dangerous tackle. I mean, that's when you want to stop and slow things down. And Dixon Smith gave me some advice early in my referee career. He says, you know, you get a game, or clearly the temperature's gone over the boiling point, call the captains over and just talk about anything for 2 minutes. Doesn't matter what. Talk about the Giants, A's, whatever you feel like, but just get them talking and let the team's testosterone levels just kind of drop a little bit. Let them get back under control. Don't let them get back at each other as quickly as they want to. So give some space and some time. About call the captains, you know, talk about it. You've got to be, we've heard the story of kind of the angry referee. These guys aren't out there high tackling each other because of you. They're not offside because they hate you. They're not making a high tackle because of the ref. There's no reason for you to be mad. You know, you need to be the eye of the storm. You've got to be the calm that everything is swirling around the outside. And that's what he's saying with regards to stay calm and proactive control. You know, and have empathy sometimes too. I mean, I've had games where I've awarded a yellow try and I basically said, you know, sorry, man, you just happened to be wrong spot. If you'd made that exact same tackle on the 22, it's a penalty. But because you made it on the 2-meter line, it's a penalty try and it's a card. You know, you're a victim of 20 meters and here you go. And you apologize and it is what it is, but he still gets the card and they still award the penalty try. You know, I've had similar issues where player came into a game. I'd already warned the team, hey, that's 2 infractions inside the 22. Next one goes. They sub out their scrum half. Scrum half commits a penalty 30 seconds after I give the warning. He's on the field for 30 seconds. I give him a card. I'm like, yeah, sorry, you were the 3rd infraction inside the 22. You know, it's the way it goes. Empathy when you card somebody, you know, not necessarily being condescending or a jerk towards them can go a long way. You know, explain your decision. Hey, I'm sorry. You headbutted the other guy. The law's clear. I have to give you a red card for headbutt. I have no option here. You know, that sort of thing. Just explain the laws. And a lot of times you can diffuse the situation and drop a heavy hand without coming off as being a jerk. And I think that's kind of important. Got to work with the captains. I think that's critical. And try and work with them. And again, and I hate to harken back to these kind of stories, but to work with you, tell them to get a new captain. And they'll give you some pushback on that. And you just remind them that you can make sure they have a captain for 10 minutes or for the rest of the game. It's up to him. But you're going to get a new captain because I can't work with you. You know, and they'll figure it out fairly quickly because usually you'll give them the yellow card before you'll give him the red. And while he's sitting for 10 minutes, they'll have a new captain. And when he comes back on the field, that guy will probably stay captain. But, I mean, you know, sort it out. I mean, you don't have to be, again, don't have to be a jerk about it, but just gently let people know what's going on. But be conscious of that. Flashpoints are a little different. I've had games where everything's just cruising along peachy keen and there's no problems. And all of a sudden there's an out of the blue high tackle. You know, it looks like he was going to kill the guy when he did it. And everybody all of a sudden erupts. That's when you've got to go, look, guys, this isolated incident, you know, we're going to handle this. Let me take care of it. And then try and get that back on track as quickly as possible. Don't let that isolated flare-up take down the rest of the game. Until that point, there were no problems. So keep rolling along at that pace. I think we're good. It's my 60 seconds.
2 things. One thing, does anybody have any comments to add to that? Because one tip that I got early in my refereeing career was if you've got 2 people that square off with each other or have some kind of an issue of some sort, you pull those 2 players and you pull the captains, you pull them away from everybody else, and you don't even talk to those people because those people are too hot to talk to at that point in time. You really want to talk to the captains, tell the captains you're giving them both cards, send them away. Don't even say a word to them until they actually come back onto the field, and then that's when you have your talk with them. Any other comments on how to diffuse flashpoints or how to have the...
You brought something up. You do know that when a player returns to the field from a yellow card, you have to talk to them, right? Everybody knows that? Okay.
So we have the pleasure of refereeing a game that is very physical. And the next 4 minutes is a discussion because we're moving into like kind of some first aid and concussion management. So this is the best that I could find on concussions that was out there, this YouTube video. And I think no matter how good a referee we are, whatever there is, when you're having great athletes playing against each other and they hit each other at super fast speeds, you're going to see. And so we can sit back, and I've never been able to watch the whole thing through because after about a minute and a half of it, I just shake my head and go, of this violence. But it's pretty interesting if it comes up. Actually, it worked for me when I just clicked on it.
What's this rated?
It's definitely an R rated. It's definitely an R rated. Yeah. Don't get intimidated because.
This isn't NFL.
Well, I could not. Pardon? Hey, Jordan, could you go ask him if the Wi-Fi is working in here?
Asked me if I wanted to share the password ID when we broadcast.
Okay.
Sure, I'll share the password. I was trying to open up digital. You got my Wi-Fi? No, I'm
Okay.
on regular Wi-Fi. That's just
Well,
share the password that I entered.
if you guys want to watch this on your own, because if this doesn't come up, I don't want to waste everybody's time by just watching the wheel go round. It's big hits and concussions. All you have to do is just YouTube concussions, and this will be one of the top ones that comes up. You can see the guy right there. It shows a number of pretty hard hits, but concussions as a whole can be very difficult to evaluate. And as referees, we're not trained medical professionals, so we really have to keep our here we go. No, we unfortunately don't get somebody coming onto the field this quick and taking care of this. Well, a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily penalties. It's just big guys hitting each other really hard. That's a power step.
Oh man, say hello to my little.
And that's legal. Look at this guy. Yeah. Just move on. That's enough of it. So unfortunately, things like this do happen in games that we have, and at our level, for most of us at our level, we don't have a lot of medical personnel all around and things like that. So the next two slides are just going to be very brief things on that happens. What's the minimum requirement for what you really should be doing, and just to make sure that the player is safe and is reassured. And really, probably the best thing you can do is Crenshaw pose, which when things start flaring up and everything's really going bad, Jim just crosses his arms and looks like this. It's a little. Well, Jim, you can actually show it to us if you like.
He's going to be our new logo.
So.
Society website. Half of my team did the same thing. Jerry was.
But if you want to talk about somebody who is calm during, because we do not want to be escalating these situations by our voice or our temperament or anything whatsoever. And especially if a player is injured and they're laying on the ground and they got a bad injury and you walk up and you see it's a bad injury, you don't need to let them know that. The only thing you really should be telling them is we've got a way It's not as bad as it looks. You're going to be okay. And don't move them. And so can we just move on to the next slide?
I'll say,
That's a bitch, isn't it?
John, bring it up. So I'm also on the board for NCRRS. There's no directive that they must have medical.
Hopefully help get off so that they don't stumble and fall or anything like that. But a lot of times you get people who kind of pop back up and they actually look like, but as they get up, they start, staggering around. And so there's a memory function thing that USA Rugby. So again, you get lying motionless on the ground, dazed and confused, blank look, unsteady on your feet, balance problems, a loss of consciousness, confused, grabbing the head, or a seizure. I don't know if you guys ever saw the quarterback that seized up, had a concussion seizure in the end zone, and he went off and got, I guess, evaluated. They'd actually let him come back in the game and play again later on in the game. It was just memory function. This is what USA Rugby actually recommends to ask a player if you don't know whether or not they're concussed or not concussed. And concussions, usually the short-term memory is one of the first things that actually goes. And you're at today, what half is it now? Who scored last in this game? What team did we play? Did you guys play last week? And did you win last week? And so what I normally do is I walk up and I ask them, where they're at, and then I ask them what they had for breakfast today. Because usually if they don't know what they had for breakfast today, then I'm like, go off. You need to be either evaluated by somebody else, or I probably won't let them come back onto the game. So again, anybody who has a suspected concussion, to be immediately removed, and you need to notify the coach and any medical personnel that you think this person has a concussion. So that so this is what I was talking about, the ABC. So this is really the only time that you should really get involved in something. If somebody their airway breathing, if they're not breathing, or they've got a cut that's so deep and is bleeding so bad that you need to wrap it up or something like that. Again, hopefully there's somebody there that has a little bit more of a background than we do. But the number one thing you need to do is stay calm and reassure everybody that help is on the way, and that you stay calm, because if you get excited during this situation, it's not going to do somebody who's got a bone sticking out of their leg. I've had that happen in Napa 2 years ago. And it was, you know, I was the only calm person, and everybody that ran up, and I stopped people from running up because anxious as can be.
Don't have most of us don't have medical. I think the most important thing you do is get somebody to call 911 and make that appointment.
Exactly.
Being calm is great, but you need to make sure that 911 is being called. That's probably the most important thing you can do for this person.
Well,
No matter what's going on.
and reassure the person that somebody who knows what's going on, you know, a medical person is on the way, and they're going to be there soon, so that they're comfortable. And if it's a cold day, you know, get a blanket, cover them up, you know, make them feel comfortable there. Oh yeah.
I've had players, I think, make spite about calling 911 because I'm sure it's important. Got a broken leg. Calling 911.
Yeah. Well, either that or you can't start. You just won't start the game, and you'll go over and have to call 911 yourself.
John,
So,
can I interject
yeah.
real quick? So we have various competitions that we have to officiate. We have the high school. Okay. High school is mandated. Game doesn't start without EMTs there. Plain and simple. Every club is required to have an EMT there. So when you get to the pitch, make sure you identify yourself as a referee, but identify who the EMT is. Okay. Division I, Division I college, they have to have an EMT. And again, that's in their procedures. It's suggested that NCRRS have one, but it's not required. But again, when you get to the pitch, ask if there's an EMT. Find out where the local hospital is, if that's the case. If there's an EMT, introduce yourself, find out if they've done rugby, then go through, okay, if there's an injury that occurs and you see me put my hands up in the air like this, it means that their EMT needs to come on. You're more than welcome to come on the field if you see there's an issue. And the majority of the EMTs that work around rugby have been experienced with rugby before, so they know the drill. But just kind of go through them, quiz them, make sure they know what they're doing. All right, with high school, we're not going to play on, obviously, if there's an injury, we're going to stop play right away. But with college and club, I'm not going to stop play unless I have to. So feel free to come onto the field. Let me know if you feel I need to stop play. Otherwise, we're going to continue playing on unless it's an issue of player safety. But you've got to go through that whole procedure with them and make sure that they identify themselves as the EMT. Because once they identify themselves as the EMT, they're taking over liability for that. But again, you have to, if there's an argument and you feel that there's a concussion, you have to remove that player. There's no ambiguity about it whatsoever.
So do people have like their standard stuff that they talk to an EMT before the game? Because I always look for the EMT, like when I get there early and stuff like that. And I always walk up to them and introduce myself. See an injury on the field, you can come on at any point in time. I don't have any problem. I usually won't stop the game unless it's the play's coming back towards them. So, you know, but if you see something that's really serious, just scream out my name. I'll blow my whistle. We'll stop everything. Thing that they like to talk to the EMTs before the game about. Is that about standard? So I really think safety is the number one responsibility we have. Don't remember anything else out of all this. Do no harm. You know, which means if you are undecided, wait till the 911 person gets there, whatever. If you don't know what's going on, just don't do anything. Don't move somebody, because we'll get in. So again, control, you know, avoid any unnecessary movement. If the person's not, if they're unconscious you've got to assume that they've got a neck injury before, before you do anything. So you don't want somebody to set up and stuff like that. You want to make sure that they're okay until somebody gets there and can evaluate them. So again, ensure the player that more experience is on the way, and is when you need to do more. And that leads up to just the ABCs, is when the only time that you really need to do more is possibly if you got a marginal concussion and you're trying to evaluate if the player needs to go off immediately. But just the airway, entire airway. So again, if the player's unconscious, they have a neck injury until proven otherwise. So I think they have a little nice saying here: if the player's on the deck, think about the neck. Anybody have any comments?
John, I have a question for you.
Yep.
So if the team has a medical professional, somebody that they hire on and they get, you think the player cannot play and that person clears into that medic's judgment, or do you have to say no? I think it's right.
It's your game. You have the final say all the way around. Yeah. Pardon?
It's the same thing even in international.
In any rugby, yeah.
The referee takes the decision and overrules medics. They generally don't, because they've got full capability there. So they're taking the medics thing, but they have the authority to say no. They don't, because they've got full medical. In our case, we have the authority to say no at any time.
So this is from USA Rugby, and this is, again, their visual cues. Lying motionless on the ground, slow to get up, dazed, blank look, unsteady balance problems. Lost.
Jordan,
This is mostly about me as a referee. Yeah.
so to answer your question, if you got that, if there's that little voice inside your head that says this player should not be playing, you better listen to that little voice. And if there's a medical personnel that's saying, I'm sorry, I think you can play, then USA Rugby will back you, and the liability will back you, because the law is very clear. Referee has final say. If it's a question of the EMT, and then that voice, I'm not going to let him play. Stick with your first instinct.
Even if it's the star player. And that's the hardest thing, is the star players.
Coaches are there to
And
win
the
the
star player's guy is the coach.
Yeah.
To that point, I made a mistake last year. That there was a scuffle in a game. And then I had to deal with the red card, and I was separated, dealt with the red card. By the time I got back to the player, looking sharp and all sorts of things. Never should have. Because he was out cold. He was the star player, he was the captain. My first instinct was not. And then,
Well, like I said,
you got to stick with that first instinct.
so these are the discussions that we had before on like just different questions you can ask. Again, I tend to, it's mostly the first thing that's going to go is short-term memory. So if you can ask them something that's a fairly short-term memory, I always think, because asking them what breakfast is really off the wall. So it's not something they'd ever be thinking about. So that's one of the things I ask. But this is what USA Rugby actually recommends. Yes, to the player. That is it. Paul, can you pull up the next thing? And actually, can you pull up those? Or is that going to take too long? Okay, so we won't. So USA Rugby actually puts together a whole list of videos, and unfortunately, put it onto my computer. In this, we can't hook computers back and forth.
The online class will have the video, so you can pull them up.
Yeah. So this. And I think I gave everybody last week, and it should be online, how you can actually get to the seminars for every month. USA Rugby actually does a topic. So October was the safety month, safety for October. It'll actually pull up all the information on the safety stuff. And so there are probably 15 little snippets that actually go over like what a charge looks like. When it's set up and somebody charges in with the shoulder, what's your definition of you get when's it go from a penalty to a yellow card to a red card? John? Yeah. So what like somebody comes charging into a and they just come in with their shoulder charge right into the thing. When do you go from, what's the difference between just a penalty when it turns into a yellow card and when it turns into a red card? That's pretty close to what, you know, what USA Rugby actually refers to it as. So this is principles of the game. And USA Rugby is not trying to take the physicality out of the game. They're just trying to make sure that, like, you know, it's okay to put pressure on the ball. And it's okay to, you know, like some of the tackles we saw before in that really violent video was, it's a super fast game. And so we don't want to take that out of it, but we do want to make sure that the game's as safe as we can and to try to recognize certain situations where most of the accidents happen. Moving down. So we can keep moving on. Our dangerous tackling, and then they're going to go into dangerous play in the scrum, ruck, and maul. This is kind of, when you look at tackle safety and you look at like what you're going to decide on, are you going to decide on a yellow card, a penalty, or a red card to play on? So, you know, it's where the contact was, and then was it accidental, reckless, or deliberate? A lot of times reckless doesn't need to be, you know, intentional. It's just that you actually are, you're out of control and you hit a player that's in the air. The player goes down. You know, what's the definition of you see somebody hit somebody in the air? How do you guys decide if it's a penalty, a yellow card, or a red card?
How are we supposed to take that into consideration for referees? We just see what happens. I mean, like, say the guy slips as you're going into tackle. Yeah, there's a situation where there was a yellow card in the Saracens Wasp game against the 10. Guy cut back on the 10. He threw his arm out, caught the guy right in the chin. Didn't mean to do it. Still caught him in the face. Yellow card, totally appropriate.
Exactly.
Accidental. I was throwing it out there. Yeah. That's why you got yellow.
Yeah. So yeah.
And that I think would be reckless. But he didn't swing an arm with the, you know, trying to knock the guy's block off. That would have been, you know, catch.
And in the video, there's an actual video that has almost that exact thing against Fiji playing Australia, where an Australia guy, the Fijian runner, and brought him to the ground, and I actually thought the referee played way too long of an advantage in the entire thing, but he came back and eventually gave the guy a yellow card. This is an interesting stat. I don't know where they came from it, and this kind of goes back to showing that in a lot of situations, we really can't control a lot of the injuries that come up. You know, if you don't have good tackling technique, so 76% of head injuries occur in a tackle, and 72% of the injuries in the tackle are by the tackler. I mean, can we really control how somebody tackles somebody? I mean, it's very seldom that we can. You know, in the previous discussion about like collisions in the air, if both guys are going for the ball and it's a wicked, it's a wicked thing. I mean, you just play on. You know, they're both going for the ball. So, can you move down another one, Paul? But anything with the neck and head, and once again, when high school rugby, I think high school, any like no stiff arms to the head whatsoever, no contact to the head whatsoever, and is that always a yellow card?
Not necessarily a yellow card. It's always a penalty. And again, you've got to look at intent and purpose and all of those other things. But at minimum, it's a penalty with a stiff arm to the face.
That's offense or defense.
It does not matter. I mean, defense, I can't see a stiff arm. You're on defense and you're stiff arming. Yeah.
So this is the as I was saying before, like, there are situations where if you don't slow down the ball and you realize you slipped up into the guy's head and you release it immediately, that it could be a play on and nothing actually happens whatsoever. So unfortunately, we don't have good enough wireless to actually show you the film that comes along with all this stuff, because there's about 3 or 4 ruck videos, and so you can just move on up this stuff. So this is ruck safety and what we can do to actually hopefully try to alleviate some of the problems that happen in a ruck, and that's arrive early, stay close to a hot contest. And again, now this gets into charging into the whole thing. No, the neck roll should either probably be a yellow or red card, and again, it depends on exactly how the person pulls it on out. So, and
yeah, but it's saying charging into the head or the neck is a red, charging into the body is a yellow, and then a neck roll is potentially whether or not it's safe or not. So you kind of read that red. But you see it. I mean, the guy will be back 5 meters, and there's a ruck guy flying into it, and it's just counter rucking. You can't fly into that. You have to be bound or under control.
Well,
so if somebody bound to you, and you're going in together, which you never see, or you're coming in under control.
Yeah.
Just going in, blowing somebody up is going to get you a penalty every time, if not a card.
But I would say that charging into a ruck is probably the thing that most referees will probably look at that and go, was it really that big a deal? And if you're the guy that got his ribs broke by the guy just coming in, then yeah, it is a pretty big deal.
If it's from me to Dan, no big deal. If it's from me to Paul, probably an issue.
Shoulder on the head? Or shoulder on the shoulder?
Well, in the videos, they actually show 3 different chargings coming into, and they go from a penalty to a yellow card to a red card. And it's a guy that goes in once and hits the guy in the shoulder, and the next time he jumps back out 3 feet and then runs in again and hits him right in the head. And it turns into like almost a brawl on the game. But unfortunately, we won't be seeing that. But you can watch it. You can go on into the October.
The other links, so you'll be able to go back in your classroom and see it. I have a question. So it's an alligator roll. It's a body roll, but it's grounded by the neck and not. So an alligator roll is a legal tactic, and it's on the torso. Is when it goes from the torso to the neck. That's when you're penalizing it, possibly giving a yellow or red.
But also, if you do the alligator roll and the rollee winds up on his neck.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Right. No, and again, it's not necessarily intent, so you have to judge that. He didn't mean to put him on there, but you don't ref on intent. You ref on outcome.
Well, if we go back to that, no, we don't go back to it, but that other slide that talked about, it can still have enough force and not be reckless that it still requires a card or a red card. And they actually show, like, coming to a mall and hitting somebody and then coming like this, grabbing their head and just pulling them straight out of the thing. And people will actually follow their head pretty quickly. So it's very effective, but it's very dangerous, and it's always a card. And many times you grab somebody and finish them and bring them to the ground like this, it's always going to be a card. And at least I think. So scrum safety. Slow the engagement process, space, and in my world, you actually bring people closer together. Why they say no pre-engagement, I don't understand that. To me, this is USA Rugby stuff, but I don't understand why they would come up with a no pre-engagement. Because I think if you've got an unstable scrums and they're overmatched or one team, you want to bring them closer together, and you definitely want to go through a pre-engagement process. Does anybody have a comment on that? Or
when you bind, they don't want you to. A lot of people they'll bind and they'll kind of fight and pull,
And they do that because they're too far apart. You bring them closer together.
yeah. So again, insist on stability, watch for the binds, and be aware of the body angles. I think we all kind of know that. And they had some really nice videos of this that one of the videos I actually thought that you go ahead and watch. You guys will be able to watch it when you get home tonight or tomorrow. But the angle that the guy had, the penalty actually I thought went the wrong way. That the guy just overpowered him position, and you don't want to penalize somebody for being stronger than the other guy.
I do have to address something related to scrum. And it comes to the fact that 80% of you that took the quiz a couple of days ago about scrum, and I'm not calling anybody out, but the fact is that when we see it at the international level, and we see it being okay with the referees at the international level, it becomes practice. What I'm talking about is the practice of towards the end of the scrum when the ball is back by the 8 and one team overpowers the other, and the back row or the beaten team stands up. They're standing up to disengage themselves, to relieve the pressure on the scrum. So you've got necks that are exposed. It's an immediate whistle. You need to stop play. At the international level, the referees are getting paid, the players are getting paid. The referee says use it. There is no ambiguity in the law book. If a front row stands up, you've got to blow it up. It's about player safety. Plain and simple. The game management guidelines, there's no ambiguity. If a front row stands up and they've been beaten, you've got to stop it.
And it's a penalty.
And it's a penalty. Now,
But just first reason you're stopping it is for safety.
correct.
For safety, for sure.
Decision then comes is did they step up, is it a penalty,
Right.
whatever. They may come up and it may not be a penalty, but
Yeah.
the first reason you're stopping is safety.
Well, more than likely, the front row is going to appreciate you if you call a penalty, because then they don't have to re-scrum against these guys again.
But the
So-
dilemma is that
And so-
I am out of the case, so there is a penalty, but the first reason you're doing it is safety.
Yes,
the
for
reason
safety,
why I
for
bring
sure.
this up is because there's a lot of competent referees that take this test, and 80% of you said it's up to where the ball is, or it's up to it's debatable. It's not debatable. Okay, the law book is very clear on it. The game management guidelines are very clear on it. Stop play.
So the ball is about ready to come out. The number 8 is disengaged. The scrum comes up as he picks up the ball.
The ball's out at that point.
Okay, I just want to, like, because, if we're dealing with safety and we're making everything safe, stop something, because something could end up getting injured by continuing that play.
Right.
But
And yes,
I mean, I
there's
agree.
ambiguity in the wording of it because it says, well, the ball had been won. I get that. But the fact is that scrum stood up. Somebody stood up. Somebody's neck is in a bad position. Penalizing it or stopping play. And again, you don't necessarily have to penalize it. It might not be a penalizable effect. It just might be poor technique. Responsible for player safety. Number one priority, bar none. No ambiguity in the law book. There's no ambiguity in game management guidelines. Stop play. And the last thing you want to deal with is dealing with a lawyer. Well, why did you allow the play to continue when you saw the front row standing up? I thought the ball was almost out. Okay, but is there any? Do you get the choice? And that's when you start getting yourself into that kind of issue. Very clear.
safety number 1. So again, we get into mall safety. I like, the high work rate, getting in there into position. Again, making sure that the people come in legally. No swimming whatsoever. Shoulder, no leg lifting, and again, no collapse. And there's a number of, I think there's 3 different videos that come along with this one that are actually show a number of those things. Any comments on you guys did USA Rugby do a good one on the mall safety?
You know what no swimming means? Coming in, you enter from the legal side, and you just kind of work your way around the outside. You see it in rucks and malls. Come through the ruck, or they come to the mall through the gate on side, and then they kind of step around everybody.
They just kind of slide, they get down and slide right on through.
They call swimming the side, but that's what that is.
That's the outside. Now, if you're found dead in the middle, you're good. You gotta wait till you fly away.
I really think maintaining the gap. Well, I'm sorry, what was that, John?
The issue with the lifting a leg, originally it was you can lift the leg, it's fine because that in and of itself isn't a problem. But if the mall collapses as a result of it, then now you've got an issue. So it's like, yeah, you can lift the leg, that'll stop the mall. But if the mall goes down, I'm going to give you a yellow card for lifting the leg. it's kind of a risk reward thing. So that's why they're saying now they're just telling them just don't let the leg.
You can manage it before you move it.
Yeah, just manage it. Put the leg down, let it go, or don't collapse it.
Don't let the leg, and if it collapses, bang.
Yeah.
Space is always the referee's best friend, I think. So anytime you're ever refereeing, I think creating the space and lineouts and penalties and scrums and all that kind of stuff, more space is always going to be easier for you. You're going to be better all the way around. Having a nice big gap is going to make everything a lot simpler and easier. Positions move around a little bit. I really like, if you've got an AR, almost every one of the lineouts, just the AR, you got the front right, just so the players actually hear that, so they realize there's somebody else watching them besides just you. So just even if you're not paying any attention to your ARs, or the AR doesn't know what they're doing, like most of us get. So watch for sacking the lifter, and we know what you guys know what sacking the lifter is. Coming on, even going on up, we're both going for the ball. The one guy grabs the ball, I grab his arm, and then we come down. What does that turn out to be?
You can sack the jumper. You can't sack the lifter.
The lifter. So I'm just talking about getting our arms crossed up, and then I bring kind of the guy down to the ground with like that. The jumper.
Yeah, this is specific about the lifter. So the jumper, it's a legal tactic to sack the jumper so long as the jumper hits the ground first. And you're going to know when the teams want to sack the lifter, or excuse me, sack the jumper, because everybody's going to step away from it because they don't want to engage in the maul. They don't want to create the maul. As soon as he comes down, just clarify that I know what you're about to do. Make sure he hits the ground first. It's got to be one movement. Now, the tactic has been over the last couple of years, rather than sacking the lifter, rather than sacking the jumper, to sack the lifter, taking the lifter out of the equation. Well, penalty because the lifter is holding up a guy 8 feet in the air.
And depending on what I was trying to get to is depending on how the jumper falls, depends on what the sanction is. So if he falls on his shoulder or his head, then you have to go to a card.
Real quick on the lineouts, just to let everyone know, guys, get to the front of every lineout and ask for numbers. It's just kind of the way we're doing stuff now. Red, how many are you gonna have? 5. White, you're gonna have 5. White, once white set, red, white set, that's your gap. Don't close it. And if you want to get out of there, go. But get to the front. Manage
For the first 4 or 5. Yeah.
As a common courtesy, we've generally ended up, and I think I had the situation the week before last where I was specifically asked by the teams not to give them the numbers. Right? Okay, because they told me it wasn't my responsibility. I said, you're dead right, it's not my responsibility. Right? Okay. I then lectured the hell out of them and blew them a few times in the room. Right? Okay, because they weren't actually joining the lineup properly. But they decided to get technical with the laws before the game, so they got a lecture on how to join the lineup for the first 10 minutes of the game.
How long will you do that during a game, Pete?
Well, I do it the whole game. What'll happen is this: I had one team go, we're going to go 5 all day. Okay, guys are going to go 5 all day. But you still want to be at the front of the lineup to set the gap, because as soon as you're not there, your gap's this way.
Yeah.
You just set the space and then get out.
But based on the other side of the coin for your comment, John, if they do announce numbers, I stop it.
Yep.
So you said 5.
I can count 6.
You got 6 in, or you got 3 in, or 4 in. I'm going to let them match. It's 5 or 4. What is it? Okay. That's the only time we'll
Or
talk.
the other one, they call 5 and 4 come in, and then they look for numbers and say, sorry, guys, you said 5.
You said 5.
Well,
The reason we do the numbers is the non-throwing team is allowed a reasonable time to match. Is shorten that time up. You let them know ahead of time, there's not a problem. If not, if they're not going to give you the numbers, then you stay at the front, and when they come in, okay, guys, you're coming with 5, they have 5. You need to drop 2.
if they come in with 7 and then drop 3 guys out, I will stop and let the other team match them rather than let them actually. If they do it repeatedly, it's like you've already come into the line out, stay within the line out.
You can't leave. I've said this 100 times. Lineouts are like first grade math. You can add, but you can't subtract. You can put more in, but you can't take them out. Once you're there, you're there.
Question?
That video where Andrew did the whole line out thing. You guys already talked about that? 'Cause I came back.
No.
So what was the deal with that?
So Oh, okay, so he's referring to the question with the teams coming in and jumping, correct? So we know how many they've got there in the box, and the dilemma is that they would come in and that they would immediately go up, and the problem is in doing so they're taking away space. They're creating a disadvantage for themselves because the defense has no opportunity to defend the number. They don't know where it's going to. You can't establish the gap. There's a whole myriad of issues that have to occur. So the simple fix is come in, there's got to be a pause. Give them an opportunity to show you that you have a gap. Right, now you can go up. That's really the fix. Okay. You've got to have that little bit of pause that shows that this is the gap and it's set.
So running in after at the whatever that.
Oh, no. Not a fair credit. They're going to play the referee. If the referee's going to allow it, they're
Yeah.
And many of you responded to the posts, said the same thing. If the referees, you play to what the referee's going to do. If the referee allows it, it's on for the day. But the reality, the way you manage it is you create that bit of a pause. Great, now it's set, and then you go.
And there's a couple teams that do that pretty much all the time.
But you're also covered under the simple laws of the lineup. The teams have to form
a lineup.
Teams come in and stand for as ball goes to a ball.
Yeah.
Right? It's not run in and jump in the air and catch the ball. Right? Your coach to work that out since last Saturday week. So yeah, it's fine. Okay.
And there's tactics to having more numbers and less numbers in lineouts, and you have to be. And in theory, the throwing team dictates the max, and so you think, well, gee, if we've got 3 and we're throwing in, then they've got 5, they have some advantage. The reality is that they may not. If you win the lineout with 3, that means you've got 2 players someplace they don't, so you have more players someplace else. We're going to run guys up to the line. We're going to have less numbers. We don't care if they match, and we don't want you to free kick them for not having numbers because all our extra guys are out in the centers, and we're going to run crash ball out there, and we're going to go from there. So don't slow us down by giving us free kicks if they have numbers. And I'm like, I'm going to give them a second to match your 3, and if they go find your guys in the centers, that's on them. But I'm not going to let you just run up and throw it in. They have a reasonable time to match numbers, and you have to, as John says, form a line out. So, if you're just going to game the system, it's not going to work. But there's reasons for more and less. I mean, you think that they're at a disadvantage because they have 3, but they don't.
So, did you not free kick them if they had extra numbers? Because I guess that could be an advantage to the techies.
Well, and again, it's if you're throwing it in and you got 3 guys and they got 5 guys and you still win your lineup, whether extra 2 material.
And
Well,
you've got the advantage.
And exactly, you've got,
2 more guys in the center.
and like, I mean, if to blow a whistle when one team's already got an obvious advantage that's not a very good.
Now,
So-
if they lose the line out, if they throw it in and the other team steals it, they've got 5 and they've got 3, then it's maybe. Were they given a sufficient amount of time to match numbers? If they ran 3 in before 2 could get out, and even getting out, they don't have to be back to full 10. If they're retiring and getting out of that lineout and they're not participating, and they're retreating to the 10 meters, the ball's thrown, they're not participants. They're doing their best to play by the rules, and I would be hard pressed to run.
I think we've kind of addressed most of these things for the collisions in the air. I think everybody's pretty much on the same place. Where if it's 2 players both going for the ball, it's play on. It all looks at part of it is where the player actually lands on the whole thing, and if it was a fair challenge. And I think those are the 2 big distinctions that we're looking at. And then we come to our conclusion, which, be ruthless with foul play, set your standards, and I'd say set your standards really early in the game, and be consistent throughout the game. Even when they start getting heated up and the games go really tight at the very end, which we all are hoping the game is like that, be consistent throughout the whole thing. If it was a yellow card early on, it should be a yellow card all the way through. And I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Is that part of your nutrition? Well, you don't have to worry about weight yet, quite yet.
his cookies on the field. He was my pace setter. Just following him.
Before you start, one more thing on concussion. Send him off. I had a guy that died the day after I left the game. Well, it's not my fault, but because I didn't know he'd been concussed the week before, and he's sick. But I can tell you, I have never forgotten it. The feeling you don't want to have. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, it's a great good start for mine. And then he leaves the room. Okay. You start here. That's fine. So, guys, I'm talking about conditioning. Fitness, conditioning, and nutrition. So, just wanted to kind of like open up the conversation. Just talk about fitness. So, why should a ref be fit? Come out here. Why should a ref be fit?
Keep the game safe.
Don't get injured. Keep the game safe. What are some other things?
See what's going on.
See what's going on.
Help with play. Look good in your jersey.
Keep it. Look good. Look good. So and so like obviously the first job of the referee on the field is safety, but also too the second thing is to keep the game fun for the players. This is their game, so being able to stay up with the game and being able to make calls in an appropriate position, I think is a big importance of fitness. So conditioning. If you want to click the next one.
You can make a bad call and be right there. Most people won't even argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're there and you make a call, it's more credible than.
Comments about Tim there, John, please.
Yeah.
Oh.
Throwing shade. I see how you are.
So conditioning. What's something important for conditioning? This is conditioning to me is maintaining your fitness throughout a season. I mean, our seasons are long. So it's how do you kind of keep your regimen throughout the whole, whatever you're focusing on, whole year, whole 15 season, whole sevens, whatever it is.
Got aerobic and anaerobic, which are two kind of slightly different dynamics that I think you have to pay attention to. For 80 minutes, and the other is the ability to sprint during that 80-minute period. And
be able to make like cognitive decisions throughout that whole time.
So the brain goes first, right? I mean, you're trailing the play, and all of a sudden the mind stops working real well, and so you're missing calls.
So early on, when I was starting to become a referee, I had the fitness, but I didn't have the mental part. David Williamson suggested to run and then to look at law notes, and then Paul also suggested doing that, run and then be able to come up with, think about something in the game, either use numbers or talk about a law question. So those are some good things. And then nutrition, the last one. I'm not a nutrition expert at all. I eat way too much sugar. I drink energy drinks. But I'm just going to talk about some things generally, like what you should maintain, kind of big principles. Do you guys have anything about nutrition or stuff that you guys do in the season or during season that helps you out? Maybe stuff you eat or stuff you drink?
A few years ago, we had one nutritionist that came and actually gave a talk. It was quite a while. But they said something about how you burn the calories that you eat in the first hour and a half, and then you start breaking down proteins in your body. And so if you think about, you come to a game, you do a warm up beforehand, and then by halftime, you've ran for probably pretty close to 90 minutes at that point. So at halftime, I really think it's super important to actually have some type of nutrition. And so you don't start fading towards the end of the game. So I'm huge on having those little shot blocks or a Gatorade or something like that at halftime.
Small second little add on to that point. I'll tell my ARs, look, guys, sometime in the second half, I'm going to have a lull. I'm going to kind of back off and I won't realize I'm doing it. And a lineout kick me in the ass and remind me that, hey, you need to pick it up again. You kind of settled in. That's a result of what he's talking about, but you need to be aware of it. And don't be afraid to ask your AR to point it out to you when you're reffing, because it happens.
Water, we're supposed to drink in a day, humans generally.
8 cups or something.
8 glasses of how much? 8 ounces. So we're supposed to have about 64 ounces of water per day. I know I don't even get close to that, but when we have a game, when it's going to be hot, make sure you're hydrating and make sure you're not just hydrating right before the game. It's not Friday night. It's got to be like all day Friday, and then as you get up on Saturday, because if you just pound a bunch of water, it's just going to go through you. So
By the time you're thirsty, it's already too late.
you go to the next slide. So my presentation is this like little hill, right? So how do you summit it? So how do you get ready for the rugby season as a referee? And then click next one. And to get to where you want to go. And so we all have different goals, in our referee career. So is it your big game? Is it, maybe it's a Northern California playoff game that's coming up, or maybe it's a USA Rugby Sevens assignment, or maybe it's ARing a PRP game. So whatever your is, you want to kind of focus on that and give yourself kind of that goal out in the future, whatever that's going to be. Next one. So then, what are some kind of like big picture stuff? Just kind of stepping back, big picture stuff. So don't run to run. So a lot of times you're like, I gotta get fit, so I'm just gonna go out and run. I'm gonna talk about some stuff just to be a little more focused, but don't just go out and run to run. Have a purpose. Have an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. So put away those dollar bills. Does anybody know what I'm talking about here? Pescetti here. So David, David's trying to get to a level, and along his way, people have said, hey, you gotta kind of slim down and look more the part. And so he came up with the saying of, because all day he snacks. And so it kind of figured out, oh, I eat at work. Well, what do you eat? And I guess he goes to the vending machine and puts dollar bills in, and he gets like a Cheez-Its or he gets whatever. And so Mark Nelson said, you can't carry dollar bills with you. So now he's at work and he basically can't get those snacks. So this is just something, don't snack throughout the day, try to eat those big meals, try to have a big breakfast. Your deficiencies, right? So if you're fast and quick, maybe it's endurance. If you're, a good long distance guy, work on that footwork. There's a lot of stuff you can do with just, general footwork, cutting back and forth. Maybe it's your law. Maybe it's running and getting tired and making those tough decisions. For me, that was what I was working on.
If you're not fit or fast, work on your running line.
And then lastly, go back one.
Referee between the 22s and the 15s, the best of your ability.
So control the controllables. So obviously things that you can control and take control of that. So, if you're injured, how are you going to stay fit? Get on a bike. And then this is something that I read about, and it's train for Saturday, okay? Back to the first thing, don't run to run. So, I need to get fit. I'm going to go out, I'm going to run 3 miles, and I'm just going to go around in circles, and I'm going to run. I'm going to go up a hill one time, and then that's it. So focus on what you're going to do on Saturday. So if you're a center ref, if you're an AR, so more than fitness, even more than, hydrating and having all these electrolytes, do what you're going to do on Saturday. So how much do you guys typically run in a game? Do you guys know generally? 3.5, 4 miles. Yeah. So I got a watch. So it's a GPS watch. So I run about 4 miles in a game, 4 to 5 miles in a game. Right. So if I'm going to have a big center game, 5 miles, that's what I'm going to look at. If I'm going to be an AR, how much are you typically doing as an AR? Does anybody know? I did 3 miles in David's game. That was a lot of St. Mary's, a lot of back and forth, but a mile to 3 miles. So anyway, so go to the next one. So like I said, I have this watch. I have the Phoenix 3. It's a Garmin watch. So, a lot of people are starting to use this, a lot of guys on the top levels. And so, I do it and it's fun. It's cool. It's nice to look at the, my stats, but what can we do from it? So I pulled my data and kind of looked at and analyzed a little bit, and it was really interesting. So go to the first one. So I had 2 games at St. Mary's this year. So my first, I was a center ref, St. Mary's versus an Australia team. And then I was an AR in David's game this weekend. Next one. So as a center ref, this is what my track looks like, right? I'm all over the field. You don't really know it's, but you're all over the field.
Look at that long run down the right side.
So I'm all over the place, right? Let's go to the next one.
That is actually.
So next slide. So this is kind of the breakdown, right?
Can you go back to that for a second?
Yeah.
Of the guy this old guy, he would go out and run with one of those, and he'd have little hearts that said with his wife's name in the middle of it. Then he'd come back.
Oh yeah. There's one that you could draw like a penis or something.
Yeah.
Go to the next one.
This is
all your warm up, right?
This is just my warm up. Yeah, this is just me getting ready. So this is the breakdown kind of numbers, but kind of the things that you want to look at is like top speed, I'm running pretty fast. You're getting up there. But then your heart rate, my average heart rate during a game is at 146. That's, pretty high, and I'm hitting 185 in a game. So you're really taxing yourself. Next slide. Yep. And so this is my heart rate throughout the game, and it's perfectly overlaid with my pace. So the harder I run, the faster I run. Yep. That's halftime. Yeah. So then, the next one.
Seconds, there's James.
So this is like, your heart rate zones. So like, I'm spending 4% at max, and, orange, I'm kind of here. So just generally kind of take a look at this and take it in. Let's go to the next slide. And so this next, okay, go ahead.
So I did something similar to this when I was on, and the first couple of years that I would track it, I actually put my heart rate monitor on a video track so that you could actually monitor the video at the same time as the heart rate. One of the interesting points about it is you see all the red zone, okay, and it goes back to a training regimen. So I had done the Super League final 2 years in a row. The first year that I had done this, I also tracking the heart rate. All of my mistakes, every one of my mistakes happened in the red zone. Happens is when you're in that tax, and my red zone was about 8 minutes. So the goal for the next year was to reduce the number of minutes that my heart rate was in the red zone. Okay, so I changed the workouts, and I changed the workouts to be more reflective of what you do in a game. Now, you do a lot of fartlek running. That's the fast running, slow recovery, run again. Okay. My heart rate dropped dramatically in terms of how much time I was in the red zone. I cut that down in half. The funny thing is, I also cut my mistakes down. And when you're in that red zone, you will make mistakes. So the goal from this, and I would tell Tim, is that 3 minutes and you're in the heart rate zone and you're red. I bet you can calculate what mistakes are at that point, and you'll be surprised at how many mistakes you do make in that zone.
You can actually, and I didn't do it, but you can take video and overlay all this onto it. Garmin does it really nicely. And there's me as an AR, right? So you're really up and down, up and down, up and down on the sidelines, walking across, yelling at David, telling him what to do. Next one. But then take from here. So I'm still hitting a pretty high max speed, but my average speed is pretty low, and then your heart rate is really low. I mean, you're at 100, which is good, but my max is at 140, which was what my average was for my center. Next one. And then you can see their heart rate. This is hard because it's not adjusted. It's the top here is 140 versus the other top one was 180. Again, overlaid by pace. Next one. But you can see in the heart rate zone, dramatically different, right? Dramatically different. You're spending a lot of time in that zone 1, and maybe you spike up to 2, but you're relatively. So here, so what I do, you can actually see him. Yeah, because he's calm. So here's the two side by side, right? Here's the center, and here's the AR. And so something I take from here is, if I'm training for a center, I don't just want to be running straight ahead. You really want to be working on the side to side, the cut, the back and forth. So I know a lot of people here, when you're training, you're not doing that stuff, going side to side, working on, getting in the line and going backwards, backpedaling, running sideways. So, just take note of that. And if you're an AR, really work on that straight ahead, back and forth, that walk, 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 sprint, walk, 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 sprint.
What are you doing in the second half there on the right side with an AR? A lot more points.
A lot of conversions, but the sideline is really sloppy on that side. So I tended to be in field because I didn't want to. Next one.
I thought it was the fans on the sideline.
So again, you can just see the heart rate comparisons. As an AR, you're a lot lower. Next one. And this is kind of the most meaningful one, right? So, if you're a center ref and you're going to be a center, you got to tax your body. You got to go up. You got to run hard. You got to get your heart rate up. If you're an AR, you need to run, but you don't need to be, going out and killing yourself. You're going to be, probably putting on miles, but, your heart rate's going to be relatively low. You guys have any questions about that?
In an optimal world, you're only making mistakes in the red zone. If you're making mistakes down in the gray area, we have a
Gray matter problems.
Yeah. The gray matter problems are problems.
So most of us are in Tim's category of training, and so there was a recent study that came out that talked about what's the most efficient training that you can do. where you elevate your heart rate and, do that over 10 or 15 times. So if you can go down to a park, run like, I do this thing called where you run for 30 seconds as hard as you can, then you walk for a minute and a half, and you do that 10 times and go back down. And the interval training like that's actually been shown to be one of the more efficient trainings if you're just a normal person, a normal referee, not in Tim's caliber.
No, I mean, I'm doing similar stuff. I try to go to touch. I try to pick up a touch game, somewhere around the Bay Area once a week. That gets my kind of lateral movement, and then I try to run on my own. David's been a little bit more and trying to get more into it, so it's helpful to have a training partner. But do you guys have any questions about watches or any technology stuff? Yeah.
So my suggestion and the things that I'll do with referees is I'll throw a bunch of cones out on the field and simplify, resemble, doing that, hitting those cones, emulating what you would do at each of the cones, sliding, things like that, recovery, quick recovery. How quickly you can get your heart rate up. It's how quickly it can come back down. And the only way it's going to come down quickly is if you get it up high, bring it down low, and then do it again. You have to practice recovering quickly.
It is cool about these watches because you basically it learns to you. So if your heart rate spikes, it'll tell you when you've recovered back, and then it'll compare when you've done what your recovery time is.
Which was that? Could you run the game with that watch too?
Yeah. So this one is nice because you can turn on your GPS and then you can go to other functions and do timers. So this is a Phoenix 3. There's a Phoenix 5 now. I got this used on Craigslist for $200. So good deal for me. Came with the heart rate monitor, came with everything. The new ones are about $600.
Do you have to wear a heart rate monitor with that?
Yeah. So this one you can get optionally. You can get it embedded in, or you can get it separately. Either way. Okay, so now stepping away from the technology and all that stuff. So how do we train in general?
Just one quick thing. When you wear two watches, that happens from time to time. You want to wear the two watches. Make sure that their button functions are the same on each watch, because this one starts the game and that one stops or resets it. All of a sudden, you forget which is which, and rather than having two watches, one you reset, the other one's going, or just it's always helpful to get either two of the same or two of the. What you do with the watch starts and stops the exact same way. So if you've got two, I mean, you're going to get one of those big fancy ones, great. You want to cheat on the other wrist, just make sure they start and stop the same. That's all I'm saying. I learned that the hard way.
Don't confuse yourself. So just generally speaking, so I'm just going to go over kind of phases of the year to build up to what you're trying to do and then talk about that. So preseason, this is kind of, this was kind of, I would say, maybe now, maybe a month or two ago. So what do you do when you don't really have much rugby? It's hard now because we have 7s and 15s all mixed in, but, try to is what you're working towards and have that in focus, right? So, you can't always just be fit and always be, 100% going. You have to have that downtime and that uptime. Is when you want to do, for fitness, it's when you want to do your strength work. So you want to get in the gym, you want to be doing kind of, getting your muscle mass, and you want to work on form and function. So like instead of going out and running hard, you could work on your sprint technique or whatever you're trying to do. You're not tiring yourself out. You're just trying to get that stuff that you're focused on. So my footwork, I'm going to cut here, or I'm going to get, bigger. It's really about relaxing and kind of getting yourself fixed. You come off a long season with injuries, make sure you're getting good. And then nutrition, it's really just eat a lot, kind of find your happy medium and where you want to be, knowing that you're going to, maybe taper off and try to, get more lean. Any questions about preseason? All right. Next. Like where we are now, like early season, train like a 5K. I think that's a good mark to have. So train like you're training for a 5K, work on your core a lot. Conditioning, start getting your regimen. Start finding out what you want to do. You're going to lift hard on Monday. On Wednesday, you're going to do a longer run. Thursday, Friday, kind of taper off. And then Saturday, go out and do something. And then use your brain while you're on. We already talked about that. So, have some kind of, do some kind of activity while you're running. And then nutrition, this is when you start focusing kind of on getting smaller meals and focusing on lean food. Next one. So you're in the middle of your season. You're kind of, ready to do it. I try to focus on 1 or 2 kind of big sessions early in the week, tire yourself out. And then work in agility kind of, Wednesday, Thursday, on Friday. You don't want to tire yourself out, but it's more focused on something that's not going to tax your body as hard. Conditioning, stretch, that's a big thing. I don't do enough, but, work on that time to stretch. And then nutrition, hydrate, a lot of protein, and then stay off sugar. Cool. Next one. And this is kind of just generally my routine. So, Sunday is more of a recovery day. Monday, I try to do something big. So maybe it's a big run. Maybe it's a big workout, whatever it is. Tuesday, I try to rest. Wednesday, I'm going to try to do something like I did on Monday. For me, we have a touch game in the city, so I always try to do that on Wednesday. And then that's when you want to start focusing on eating kind of proteins and getting up. And then Thursday is really something light, and then really focus on your carbs then. So get your pastas and your meats. And then Friday, you want to be hydrating all day, electrolytes, and eating kind of that lean food.
Friday night out for a few pints, so hydrating.
You can add that in as much as you'd like. And then you have your big game. So make sure you're focusing on that, right? Whatever you're trying to focus on. And what do you guys do in the off season? Some of us have sevens, so that's it's kind of a longer season. But this is try to focus on what you don't have. If it's speed, if it's endurance, focus on that in your off season. And then if you don't do sevens, just get out. I guess I got to stress sevens is so fun because we all get to be together. Typically it's one or two guys and then one or two guys. Sevens, we all get together and be in one place, and it's pretty rare and it's fun. So
Tim, what do you do for speed?
What do you do for speed? It's no, I mean hills will get you there, but it's a lot of form. I mean, you can just generally like what your arms are doing, and how you're doing it. And then I work a lot. So I went to New Zealand. I played for a season and a half, and so I basically just trained like a professional athlete. So I got a lot of that stuff there, which I was able to take. But stuff that we worked on is like 40 meters. So you start just running regular pace, and then in the middle you hit 100% for like 5 or 6 steps. And so that works on you like getting your form and getting up and rising up. And then you can do the opposite. You could start hard and then come down and slow down, and really working on the footwork and how you start and how your legs are going and where your feet are and where there's a lot of stuff. I mean, like Carlin Isles, there's a ton of stuff he does. He's not just fast because he just lifts weights. He's fast because he trains that technique in his arms and everything like that. So there's that's just power, right? That's the stuff. But like, I mean, there's stuff that you can do. Like everyone can trim off speed times on what they can do by just, using their arms more or. Any other questions, guys? That's all I have.
That's good stuff.
On the beep. The game kind of fell apart.
So I will make one added suggestion with regards to if you desire to be one of those top referees, you have to have an off season. And there's always that push to try to get you to do more. And your body is going to tell you it's time to rest. And that time to rest is typically at the most inopportune time and the time when you should have rested and you didn't, and now you're paying the price for it. You will injure yourself if you don't have an active rest season. It could be 6 weeks. It could be as little as 6 weeks, but you have to have downtime. Obviously, this is not the downtime right now for 15s, but you have to, and that's where a coach will have to say, hey, he's got to have his downtime. He's got to rest. He's got to recover. He's got too many nigglies that he's got to deal with. Okay, I'm going to talk real quick, and then I think we'll be done. Yeah. Niglia injury. So a few weeks ago, I put out an audit, and I kind of wanted to go over this audit. And the audit was just related to referee development. I'm not going to show you the data. This
It was an anonymous data, and we got quite a bit out of it. And what this does, it essentially is driving what we want to try to do. Now, the reason why I want to show this to you is because it gives me some information that I need to know moving forward as to what we need to put resources towards. First question was simply, how motivated are you? I'm happy to say that almost 85% are in that 4 and 5 range. You're very motivated. But what that tells me, by you being motivated, by you as a collective group being motivated, what we expect to see are referees doing the small things. There's a lot of things that you as individual referees, and I'm using you as the collective, that are not being done. And I'll be very frank with that. Things that you can do, things that Tim alluded to, controlling the controllables. Okay? Unfortunately, referees don't get to choose which games they do. That's something that another organization does. Okay? And we're looking at the bigger picture as to who all gets developed and who's hurt and who's not performing well. Okay? But that's not something that's within your control. Now, what is in your control are things that you can control. So we're going to go over these questions, and it's going to tell me, it shows me some areas that we need to put money towards. And I'm happy to do it. But what I hope to see is that next time we do this audit, there's some changes in numbers. Don't worry about that one. That was a goof up. Fortunately, only one person responded to it, though. So, are you a referee, coach, or both? So if we're looking at this, 35% are both a referee and a referee coach. 22 out of the 40 responses are just referees. Okay. Again, it's about the audience. %77% are from Northern California. Okay, NCRRS assignments. We've got a combination of some are taking multiple assignments. So you're getting assignments from NCRRS, some are getting from NorCal, USA Rugby. We've got a couple people that are new, and some that just came from Southern California, and one from New Jersey. Average number of matches that people are saying that they refed? What's that? Yeah. And again, this is up here so you guys can look at it more. Yep. How much is that? 18 people did more than 20 matches. And then the number of matches that the collective has done for assistant referees. Number of matches that referees declined during the course of season for various reasons. This kind of
Never should have been assigned at all.
What's that? No, she never.
Sorry.
What's great about looking at this data is it kind of gives us a litmus test of how satisfied you all as a collective are, as a group. More of you were upset, you'd be declining more matches, but we're not seeing that. Okay. In fact, we don't see anybody with. We only see 3 to 5 matches last season. We see a total of 6 people out of the 40 out of the 36 that responded to the question. We saw 6 people that declined that many matches. All right. So again, fairly good data. It lets us know that we're doing. You might not necessarily like the fact that you're getting the assignments that you're getting, but you're taking them. Yeah, you can still be unhappy. But the fact is, if you're unhappy as a collective, that rating that says how motivated are you to develop yourself would be lower. Here's the big one for me. And do you maintain and actively write in a rugby diary? Helpelicus does not count. So how many? So I don't even want to ask because I've already asked the question. Okay. 50%, more than 50% never write in a diary. Now for me, I write in a diary all the time. I write in a diary as a coach. I wrote in a diary as a referee. Because that diary is my accounting of what happened. It's my accounting of what I did last week and the week before. It's my diary. It's my reflections on how the game went. More than 50% of you don't write. That's a problem. Now, if you're all motivated to referee, okay, these are the controllables. These are things that you can actively do to develop your game. You can look at what you did last week. You can focus on again, those controllables. Why is it that you had a terrible game? Well, then you start looking at those issues. I had a terrible week. I didn't work out enough. There's those things that are trackable that you can start reflecting on. That 50 minutes into a game, I have an increase in errors. Well, maybe it's because I'm not eating enough and I need to eat more at halftime, or I need to eat at halftime. And that's the only way you're going to be able to reflect on that, is to actively engage after the game. Yeah.
As I say, one of the things I didn't learn to write in a rugby journal until I took my level 2 course, and it was a learned effort. So I don't know. There are a lot of newer refs